Shall we kick off?
Yes.
Angeliki, are you able to speak before we start? You're not muted? I think we're having troubles hearing
It
you.
wouldn't surprise me if it's Cookie barking in the background and she's waiting to put her away somewhere.
Although it says she's off mute now and we still can't hear her. So I don't know if you want to try leaving and rejoining, Angeliki.
Okay. Can you hear me
now?
now?
No, we can hear you now. We're good. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Great.
Perfect.
Okay, awesome.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Do you want to show us Cookie for some like New Year motivation?
If you give me a moment, I can go grab her, but I had to put her in a different room because she's having an excited moment and she's just barking all over the place. So if you want me to, I can, but I'll need a moment.
Okay, I think it's worth it, but I'll leave that up to you.
Sure.
Cool. Okay, let's kick off. So thanks everybody for joining. I'm so excited that we're all back together. I hope you had either a restful period or a quiet work period over the last few weeks, and that we're all adjusting to getting back into the swing of things this week. As I said, we moved this call because we didn't think folks would want to join on January 1st, but from February we'll go back to our regular schedule of the first Wednesday of every month. For anyone who's new here, we've been doing this call maybe about 6 months now, and it's just a really wonderful opportunity to bring community folks together to share the love and share the knowledge. So Angeliki and I co-host the call together, and on the call we also have some of my peers, Dwayne and Scott and Charles and Vandana, who all work with me in Microsoft in the Dynamics 365 community team with lots of different roles. So why don't we kick off the new year and just do a little intro. So I am Lydia, and I have 2 roles at Microsoft. I'm an evangelist, so do a lot of storytelling, primarily for ERP, but at this point cover the whole Dynamics stack, ERP, CRM, and also Power Platform. And on the other side of my role, I lead community efforts primarily on a social side. So I work with Dwayne and our colleague Alistair on managing the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform community channels, currently LinkedIn and YouTube, but watch this space because we're going to be launching some new channels soon, and running the community call series. So I have 2 hats, storytelling and community. Maybe I can hand over to V and you can share your equivalent community and evangelism roles.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I, like Lydia mentioned, I also have 2 roles. On the evangelist side, I'm the evangelist for customer experience apps. So anything that's sales, service, customer insights, I work through those. And then as for the community side, I lead the advocacy side of community. So all of my user group leaders and MVPs, hopefully I'm your person, or at least I'm working towards that. That's me.
Awesome. Thanks, V. Charles, do you want to explain your 2 roles?
Yeah, definitely. All right. So the first role is cover a product management perspective for Copilot apps, as well as Copilot Studio, and the emerging technology group. So that is field service and some of the metaverse type stuff that we're still doing. It hasn't gone away completely. So I cover those areas. And then the other area is I cover what we call Team Starfleet. So if you are familiar with the platform that we have 2 main platforms, one for Dynamics, one for Power Platform. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And I am the manager of the platform, and I'm the manager of the community managers there.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. So for all 3 of us, storytelling for specific products and then different community responsibilities. Why don't we hand over to Scott?
Yeah, sure. And I'm on Charles' team. I work with the Dynamics community site. So if you're going there for forums, for user groups, for the blogs, and also events such as this, come on by and take a look and engage with other members of the community there outside of these calls.
Thanks, Scott. And then finally, Dwayne.
Hello, I am Dwayne, and I help handle all of the social stuff that you see that we share about the Dynamics 365 community. So I work with Lydia, I work with Scott, I work with so many great folks, and we love you, and we are so excited that you're here because we have seen this community grow and explode. So the community is social, the community is helping people in the forums. It's you, and we just get to hang out and play with you. So thank you for letting us be part of what you guys do all the time.
It's been awesome, hasn't it, Dwayne? We've seen incredible growth on the channels, 20% plus new members over the last 6 months alone. So it's so awesome to just reach people in all the different ways we can across community. Okay, Angeliki, why don't you introduce yourself as co-host and then we can jump into the content of the call.
Sounds good. So hi everyone, my name is Angeliki Patsiavu. As Lydia mentioned, I'm one of the co-hosts. I started off just being a very passionate, or as V puts it, a very dedicated MVP who just loves engaging with the community. And I wanted to bring the community perspective. So I work with Lydia on different kinds of content where we can essentially bring you new content every time, content that has been requested or what I see trending, just so we keep it fresh, but also relevant, making the most value for you essentially. And otherwise, I work for Avanade. I am part of the business applications practice, and you'll find me geek out about CRM each day, whether I'm building apps or evangelizing about some kind of Microsoft tech. You'll probably find me doing that, or blogging / speaking at conferences. That has been the latest, and really great to be here.
Thanks, Angeliki. I think Angeliki is an awesome example of a community member who was like, hey, I want to have an impact here. Can we jump on a call? I want to talk about co-hosting with you. I want to talk about what is the kind of content that we think the community would benefit from. So really encourage all of you to reach out if there's things you think this could be really helpful on the community call. This could be really helpful on social channels, on the community sites. We want your input. Our goal is to basically make you happy and give you what you need. So we always welcome all of the feedback that you can give. Okay, let's jump into the call. So as I said, for those who are new, we do an intro. We'll now cover some of the upcoming events that we think you might be interested in on the community side. And then we have two speakers today. Angeliki is actually one of them, and Sharon, who's joined today, is the other. So very excited to hear from both of them. Just wanted to share, the recording is in progress. We love hearing from you. So the more you can share, react, communicate in the chat is awesome. Same on LinkedIn. We've got, it's so awesome to see folks like Sharon promoting the call, getting the buzz out there for us all to join and come together. And as I said, this is your call. So feedback is welcome at all of the time. We want you to get as much value out of this as possible. So today's topics, Angeliki is going to be talking about the Education Accelerator. This is actually the first industry-specific content we've had on this call. So excited for Angeliki to share and to see if that's interesting to you, if that's something you'd like to see more of. And Sharon has had an amazing career from both client side and professional services. And we had a great phone call, I want to say it was in November, talking about Sharon's journey, and I just thought she has such an awesome perspective on the different experiences, you know, the strengths, the weaknesses, and information that could then be translated over to share with others. So very excited to hear about Sharon's journey. Okay, a couple of things. We have two link trees. This first one, Dynamics 365 Community, is a link that takes you to all of the I would say the main places you can find us in the community space. It can point you to LinkedIn channels, YouTube channels, community sites, specific playlists we've created recently. We wanted to make it easy for you to get to that content, because as we all know, there's so many places where you can engage with the community. So that's that first QR code. The second one is upcoming events. So I keep this link tree up to date to get to any of the events that we talk about on this call. And what we've been doing is sharing events that are, you know, recently announced, looking for speakers with deadlines that are coming up. And today we have a few events that Angeliki is going to talk through. So do you want to fire away, Angeliki?
Sure. Just a quick one. I'm not sure if it's for everyone, but I can't seem to see the slides.
Oh.
Is it just me?
It might be you, but let's not keep you in the dark. So let's try.
Oh, amazing.
Again.
Yeah, it's just my day, right?
It is your day, I know. Let me try.
Thank you for
that
sharing
again.
again.
No problem.
Okay. So I still can't see it, but it's fine. So I'm hoping this is the Cloud Technology Town Hall slide.
Yeah, so there's three. So
Okay,
what?
perfect.
Yeah, Cloud Technology Town Hall is the first one.
Okay, perfect. So as people may know already, we have a fantastic community event coming up towards the end of the month, and this is the Cloud Technology Town Hall in Tallinn. This is in Estonia. This is an amazing event. Of course, there's a massive CRM presence and a business applications presence. But what is really great about it is that it brings the whole of the Microsoft community together across the stack. So you're going to find Azure community members, you're going to find BI members and whatnot. There's a lot of good content, a lot of great people in the agenda. And if you happen to be there, I think you're going to love it. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
Thank you. The second one is the Global Dynamics 365 Bootcamp that's running January through March.
Yes, so this is a global initiative, and there's an opportunity for so many people to take part as well. So for example, if you look at the Poland version as well, call for speakers is still open. And generally, because it's a global initiative, you'll find multiple call for speakers as well. So there's a great opportunity to either be involved by submitting a session or even attending because it's going to be an online event. So keep an eye out. It's definitely worth it because I've seen how much they leverage not just existing speakers, but also new speakers as well. So if you're starting out, great time to get a session in, or if you'd like to get some experience outside of the big in-person events to begin with. So definitely a good shout out.
That's an awesome suggestion. I know lots of folks say, oh, where do I start? Where do I dip my toes in? So I love that you've called this out as a great opportunity to do that. And the final one is Color Cloud in Hamburg in April.
Oh, yes. So Coral Cloud is another great event, started last year. This year is going to be its second run. We actually have some of its speakers, and we wanted to socialize the agenda that was just announced. Sharon is, in fact, one of the speakers. Pulant. Haven't seen who else is in our participants list, but I'm sure there's some more of you in there. And one of the astonishing numbers that I just learned from one of our other community co-hosts, Anna, is that percentage-wise, there's more female than male speakers. And I think for a community that has been evolving, this is a very fantastic number to keep an eye out for because we really want to support our female growing community and, of course, bring more diversity out there. And what I mean by that is, of course, business applications is shining in the traditional CRM space. But I've seen some really cool BC sessions from our friends overseas, which is really encouraging because obviously it's not as easy to join these events on the other side of the pond and so forth. So it's a really good event and definitely very welcoming. So if you do happen to make it, I think you're going to love it.
That's awesome. Did you see Cindy put a comment in the chat?
Pre-recorded demos or lab support, as in if there are or if you can be a part of it.
Yeah, it's
I was thinking,
yeah,
sorry, I was thinking as part of the boot camps, maybe if when you're doing the boot camps and you'd like to have some sort of more interactive sessions or have people like myself supporting others with doing hands-on exercises, or perhaps mix things up as part of a presentation, have some pre-recorded demos and things to bring things to life a little bit. More than happy to help out.
It's a good shout. Are you referring to Hamburg or generally?
Just generally on the boot camps, just any of the boot camps really, whether it's sales, customer journey insights, customer service, happy to put some things together. So if you like, just reach out to me and I can see if I can support you.
That's awesome.
I think that's a great shout out.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's so good. I love it. Volunteering rather than voluntold. This is a different world, isn't it? Okay, Charles is going to talk. So we're conscious that there's so much out there in the community. There are so many places you can engage that folks might not be hanging out in every spot. So I asked Charles if he could come. Did I ask Charles? We had a conversation about it. Could Charles talk a bit about the Dynamics 365 community? And by that, we mean the community site. So maybe you could talk a little bit about it, Charles.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know, we run community.dynamics.com as well as on the Power Platform side. The whole community, you all have your own different channels that you like going to. I've heard about some WhatsApp channels, some Discord channels, some of your own channels as well. We have one too. And it's a place for the community to go and to connect with each other. For those of you who are relatively new to the community, it's a really great place to get to know other community members. It's also a great place to both ask and answer any technical questions that you have. If you wanted to know how to get this an error message resolved, rather than going to support, this is really a really good place to go because a lot of it is monitored constantly by other community members. It is really jointly run by us, people like Scott, for example, and by you and other members of the community. So a lot of the super users are the people who have really taken a keen interest in trying to answer questions that you might have. So I think it's really jointly owned, and I think it's something that becomes an important way of making sure everyone stays in the loop. There are a few different aspects to it. One of them is it's a place to go where you want to get the latest. A lot of the stuff, because it's run by us at Microsoft, is going to be a lot of first-party communications. The product management teams will often come in and make different announcements. So you'll be the first to hear things, and it'll come through the form of different blogs, news, announcements. We also have different user groups, and a lot of these user groups are local in nature. So if you are part of a user group or want to join a user group in San Diego or in the Netherlands, or wherever it may be, there's probably going to be a user group nearby. So it's a really great way to engage and connect with people who are going to be local to you or who have specializations that are similar to your own. It's also a great place if you have different types of feedback that you want to give, both feedback for the product team. So if you've noticed something that you'd like to change, you'd like to update, there's a forum for that, or there's a venue for doing that. Or even if you have suggestions for the platform itself, we have a whole team of people who can help you with that. So it's a really great way to continue growing your expertise in Dynamics, as well as continuing to connect with your different peers and to grow your footprint. If you're interested in becoming a super user, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the weeks and months to come. But it's a great program, and it's a great way that will help your MVP candidacy if you want to eventually become an MVP. A lot of the things that you do to become a super user also carry over really well to your MVP status, and vice versa, frankly. So we invite you to join if you haven't joined already. And if you have joined, we have lots of plans this year to make it even more community-centric. And this is stuff that we're really excited about. And you're going to learn a little bit more about this in the months to come.
Yeah, we've been working together, haven't we, Charles, with V and Deb, who I don't think is on this call, to figure out, where else we can continue to take this community site. And we are very excited to work on that and also work with you and get your feedback on what does a great community site look like for you.
Yep.
With that, we're about to find out if Angelique's laptop will share her screen. So why don't we jump into that, Angelique?
Sure. Okay.
It's working.
So,
there we go.
Yes,
Fantastic.
yes. Perfect. I'm pretty impressed that I went through the slides without even knowing what I was seeing.
Too.
So I'm really glad that this worked out. Okay. So I was thinking that it would be great, as Lydia mentioned, to start off with a bit of an industry focus. However, because this is a bit of a new direction, I didn't want to go too deep into the rabbit hole, but talk more about the story behind the Education Accelerator and why it's so important and the impact it can have. So with that in mind, just a quick intro into myself, even though I went through it earlier anyway. So you might understand from my accent that I'm actually a little bit different. So I'm half Greek, half Italian, but I've been living in the UK for the last 11 years now. So it's been a bit of an interesting journey. I'm an MVP in business applications for the last couple of years, and I'm also ProSci certified as an exchange manager. So I get to see the best of both worlds. I get to design solutions, but also really empathize with users that end up adopting them. Then as a result, I've become a hybrid. So I'm very passionate about architecture, but I'm also very passionate about the human impact that our technology has. And community has meant a lot for me, not just in terms of the Microsoft community and the MVP community, but also internally at Avanade, where I lead the global Copilot community for business applications and creating those connections and bringing people together to build their skills. Otherwise, I've always considered myself a human evangelist because it's very important to advocate not just about the amazing tech we have, but also the impact that we have. And you'll find me speaking and blogging, including the website empoweredhumans.net. So feel free to connect, and I'd love to hear from you. But without further ado, I'm going to start the session by talking a bit about numbers. Now, if you don't know me very well, bit of a spoiler alert, I'm a big data geek. So I thought it would be cool to paint a story. And I was looking at some recent UNESCO statistics. They do some fantastic work across different regions in the world. And one of the things I looked at, looking at the last 2 decades, more or less, is that when we look at university applicants, the global number has doubled if we look at the last 2 decades. In fact, it's more than doubled. And obviously here you can see the spread across different regions. But ultimately, the number is staggeringly high. And also, it's not just that the applicants' numbers are rising, but also they are quite international, just like our community, right? So we got different people that are exiting their home country to pursue tertiary education. And you might wonder, well, why are those numbers relevant? And what does that mean for me? Or why should I care, really? Well, let's think of it for a moment. So we are having a lot of applicants coming from all these different countries. We are talking about a lot of international applications. So we're increasing the database to begin with, exponentially, in fact. What we're finding is that the education sector, much like other sectors, let's say regulated sectors like financial services, they have a lot of legacy system and a lot of disjointed processes. So if you exponentially increase the database, you're going to find the challenges there increase as well. And also the data is quite complex. And one of the examples that will easily portray that is the fact that because we're dealing with a lot of international data, there's, for example, complications when it comes to the different alphabets that we're dealing with. A very recent example is myself. So obviously I'm half Greek, so there's the Greek alphabet. My mom being Italian, you cannot imagine the fun that I have every time that my mom's name gets translated, or worse, mine gets translated into a different language because I say different versions of that. So that shows a very simple, direct example of the complexity international data brings. Now, with that, we have to imagine that because it's a legacy industry, whether we're talking about secondary education or even tertiary education, there's a lot of manual admin that comes with it. And usually the admin is performed by people that are actually educators as well. So we are taking time away from them to spend with students, but also in very key processes like selecting applicants that are going to pursue their undergraduate or their postgraduate, or even finalizing their end of year exams, which are very important processes. Now, at the same time, you're probably aware that education is one of those sectors where people are very passionate about what they do, but the time and money is very restricted when it comes to resources, and that takes academics away from what they're really able to make the most impact on. But at the same time, it's a very regulated environment. And on top of educational specific regulations, there's regulations that all of us are impacted by, like GDPR or FERPA in the US. So ultimately, there's a lot of complication when it comes to how much the education industry is growing. Now, with that in mind, there's a bit of a quick personal story that I wanted to share just to explain once again why the education accelerator that I'm going to talk about can have a massive impact. So this is a picture of my friends, and I posted it earlier on LinkedIn because it was a really it was a way for me to connect the dots in terms of my journey into education. So when I was studying in 2007, I was moving between high schools, and it took months, what should have taken maybe just over a week, to get my documentation to move schools because everything was paper-based and it was in different systems. Very similarly, in 2009, when I was graduating and I had to apply for university, once again, everything was completely paper-based. And you were kind of living on a prayer, hoping that the papers don't get lost, you reach the education administrator in time, and all of that. But obviously, it's very time sensitive as well. Not too differently in 2012, when I was my last, semi-final year of uni, I had to apply for a scholarship to do my master's because it was too expensive at the time to just go to a different country. And once again, not only, it was actually at the time part paper-based, part online, but it was such a complex process and I had no way of tracking the progress. So whether we're talking about scholarships or any grants, no visibility whatsoever. And the time was very pressuring because I already had the university accepted me in February, and I didn't find out that I actually got the scholarship until maybe July. And until then, it was very 50-50 if I would ever going to be able to do my master's at the time. And very similarly, in 2013, I finally graduate. However, once again, processes were so slow because there was no 360 view of my profile of my undergraduate that I had maybe like a 2-week gap between me getting on my hands my degree to be going to the to my master's university in the UK. So if it didn't make it on time, then I wouldn't be able to literally present myself and go there to prove that I've graduated. So all of this to say that the Education Accelerator, which is one of the many that you can see on this screen, can have both in secondary and tertiary education such a massive difference, not just in stories like myself, because this is a small impact compared to the bigger community it involves, but there's so many ways that a single solution can really make an impact. And if you want to learn more, there's a lot of great documentation for these accelerators, both on Learn side and also in the GitHub repos. So a bit of an introduction to the accelerator itself. And today's theme, if you haven't guessed it yet, it's the Umbrella Academy, because I think it suits very well today's theme. So why is it so special? Well, to begin with, it's one of the, as you saw earlier, one of the industry cloud solutions, and it can really cater with two types of sub-solutions that it provides, both secondary schools as well as universities and thus tertiary education. Now, these are Dynamics 365 accelerators that you build on top of your existing license as a free add-on, essentially. But of course, it comes with all the beauty of the Power Platform, because some solutions, as you'll see, are the traditional model-driven apps, but you have a bit of Canvas apps, a bit of BI, and whatnot. If you haven't been convinced yet, the benefits, putting it very simply, is that you're able to streamline and completely automate some of the legacy processes and the paper-based processes, which is even worse. That you have across the different education lifecycle phases. And because it's this, because of the existence of the accelerator, if you think obviously from a partner or even an end client perspective, is that you have a pre-built solution, you can quickly deploy it. Of course, you can customize further on top, but it's a very important starting point, especially for the industry that is constantly on 24/7 and cannot really sacrifice some of its day-to-day operations to, let's say, build a new system. There's a lot of different views that we're going to examine in a while, but think of it as a one-stop shop for many places. in theory, if you get to adopt it all, but sometimes you see that a part of the school or the university starts and then they eventually roll it out across. For example, you can look at finances, and we're going to look at an example for grants and scholarships. You can look at admissions, and obviously we are talking here about all the bureaucracy to, let's say, go to a school or even apply for, let's say, a tertiary program and whatnot. You get the 360 view from an applicant stage all the way to a student or alumni, which is super, super important. You could look at academic progress, so based on an individual's history of taking courses, their grades, interactions with faculty and whatnot. So it's pretty consistent, and if you adopt it end to end, you can really enhance the way you operate. Now, it's not only very beneficial, but it's very important to get it right, because this is a people business. So it's great that it's actually compliant with a lot of the regulation that impacts the education industry. So having that as a get-go really gives peace of mind to both end users, but also implementators. And also, it's peace of mind back to the people involved, so the students, their parents and guardians, because of the single view that they get in terms of the records, the briefer processes that they have to deal with, the accuracy and thus fairness of it all. And of course, there's all sorts of compliant regulations. So FERPA, for example, is a US regulation that gives them access, information access to these records. So all of this is part of that peace of mind. And let's look at a bit of the core components. So as I mentioned, it looks at two different things. So it looks at what is called K-12 education. This is what we're looking at secondary schools, or if we're looking at tertiary education, this is the university side of the fence. However, when we look at the components themselves, we are looking at the core data model. And of course, this is something that you can pick up as a whole, because there's a lot of custom tables, or some of them you can take as is or customize or create your own as well. And the great thing is that it comes with some sample applications, and this is a mixture of model-driven apps and Canvas apps. And of course, portals, because Power Pages is a key ingredient to interact with the end users, for example, applicants, parents or guardians, and so forth. And the great thing about an accelerator is that it comes not only with your data model pre-built, but the core components to get started, even if you don't want to go through the complex customization and starting from scratch. So you're going to get on top of your data model, your tables, your fields as part of it. You're going to get their forms, some views and preset dashboards that you can start with. And in this case, you actually not only get the native Dynamics ones, but you also get some bespoke Power BI ones. So you really are spoiled for choice when it comes to visualization in certain aspects. And of course, nothing is stopping you from customizing on top. So first of all, this is about having a 360 view, particularly for students. And we're talking about all sorts of personal information. We're talking about the application process, whether you're going to a new school or whether you're applying for a course. And of course, the process itself for doing so, your grades. Once you move from one life cycle stage to another, let's say from an applicant to confirmed student to alumni eventually, all of that's going to be tracked in one go. You also have, as part of that, a very dedicated admissions process, which is very helpful when it comes to the academics that have to process it. And it comes with some native marketing-like functionalities as well, which is super helpful. Let's say if you want to do a blanket reminder to some of the applicants that haven't paid their term 1 fees, to remind them that they have to pay their fees. That's super useful if you can do it in your flow work within, let's say, the Dynamics app that you're using, rather than having to worry about another kind of integration on top. Curriculum management. That's really helpful as well. And what I mean by that is your courses and your program around them, which is very important because whether you're looking at a school or a university, the curriculum changes, whether it's by their initiative or by the government. So it's very important that you have an easy way to be able to do this, but also keep things accurate and up to date. And finally, there's analytics and insights. So as I mentioned, you have some options that come natively within Dynamics, as we know about dashboards, but also there's some cool Power BI visualization on top, again, out of the box that you're given. Some look and feel examples, because again, we're testing new things out, so I don't want to go into a full-blown demo until we get some feedback on this new content. But just to give you an example of how a student record could look like, and this is your version of a contact essentially. So here we have an example from a higher education perspective, so our tertiary education, and we have a single view of the student. So we don't only have the usual personal information that we would hold for them, but we have course-specific information that goes from a high level, so macro level, all the way to specific course level information and history, grades and whatnot, different kind of volume metrics that you may want to examine or customize further. And obviously that goes into all sorts of connected tables. So you can jump from the main student record to a specific course history, and then you might want to jump into the course itself and check some of those details. So there's a lot of opportunities to go between those related tables of the data model. Similarly, if we looked at the account level version, which is universities in this case, you have, as I promised, an opportunity to track grants. And this is really helpful because, as I mentioned, when you are going blind, and don't have a visibility of how you're managing your financing, whether you are providing it yourself and you're managing your grants as a university, or whether you're tracking it as an end user, it can be really frustrating because we're talking about very sensitive matters that could define the next step of your life. Then you also get some really cool in-house dashboards where you can manage some of your analytics when it comes to, let's say, your course history and your students' performance. But also you can get all sorts of more granular details into them, which I think is quite helpful because you now are leveraging both the native functionality for insights within Dynamics, but also you get a Power BI dashboard to enjoy should you want to go into more granular detail and maybe do some more advanced BI as well. So in terms of integrations, as we know in Love Dynamics, there's a lot of opportunities that come with that. So of course, we can leverage the full Power platform. There's some out-of-the-box apps that you already get, including a student portal, and you've seen some model and Canvas apps, but it doesn't end there. You can create your own. You can go into teams. This is really great for collaboration, let's say, between academics that are processing an application, or maybe faculty members discussing coursework and whatnot. Azure, of course, especially if you want to add an AI layer to it, whether you want to go into Copilot Studio or go into Azure AI Foundry, there's that opportunity as well. And third party, we are talking about education, so it's quite likely that you're working with third-party systems and vendors and have some version of a learning management system. So there's opportunities to integrate there as well. So with that in mind, just a bit of a fun fact. You might wonder about this whole Umbrella Academy, or you might not be as close to it. So Umbrella Academy, even though it's a really cool show on Netflix, it actually started as comic books by Jared Way. And you might wonder, who is this man? Well, in fact, Jared Way is the lead singer of My Chemical Romance. So if this is a nice throwback to your 2000s, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, because I am not only a data geek, I'm also a music geek and a comic book geek. So this works out pretty well. Some final tips before we finish. So you can look into Microsoft Learn. There's all sorts of documentation about all of the accelerators, including the education one. So I'm giving you the link here. However, just as a reminder, when it comes to these accelerators, the idea is that you need to establish your Dynamics license obviously the education industry gets similar to, let's say, not-for-profit. They have their own agreements, but ultimately you still need the license. And once that happens, and the admin will download the free add-on after. And talking about the add-on, to do that, you need to go to its dedicated GitHub repository, where you find all of the things that you need to install and some guidance with that. And very similarly, you'll also find the other accelerators they are waiting for you to explore should you wish to. So thank you so much for hopefully enjoying this kind of new content. Feel free to connect. This is my link tree, so it leads to all the social media accounts, and empoweredhumans.net, which is my blog. So Lydia, thank you so much for the opportunity today, and thank you everyone for watching. So really appreciate it, and I'm gonna stop sharing now just in the interest of time.
That was awesome. Thank you. Of course, a fantastic presentation from you. I have come to absolutely expect that. So thank you very much. I think what I might do is, that was a great presentation. And I think what might be helpful is to know how many members of the audience, how often they're focusing on industry specific content. So I'll put a little poll in the chat to get some thoughts on that, but thank you. And why don't we hand over to Sharon now? Sharon, I've made you a presenter, so you should just be able to share.
Right, okay. Let me try this. If I do that. Okay. Right, that's... Are you seeing my notes screen?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Right. Oops. Bear with me. Okay, hopefully that now means that you're seeing my actual, no, you're seeing my slide screen.
We can just see the title screen right now.
You can see the title screen. Ah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I've never actually presented using presenting by Teams. So
oh, cool. Well, welcome to an adventure.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. So, right. Wonderful. Okay. So this is a new actually a new presentation for me, not one that I've actually given before, and it's I'm quite usually giving technical presentations, but as Lydia said from the conversation that we had, she felt that my journey might be of interest to people on this school. So today's agenda, briefly go through who I am, then we'll look at life as a solution architect on the client side, what transitioning over to project services, professional services looks like, the lessons learnt, or certainly my lessons that I learned from my first year in professional services, and then the lessons for partners that they can learn to better support people doing that transition. And then finally have a look at whether or not, if you are on the client side, whether or not this would be a move that would be right for you. So who am I? I am Sharon Smith. I'm a Dynamics 365 solution architect, and I am, as of the 1st of January, a Microsoft Dual Business Applications MVP for customer experience and customer service. Still very surreal, very, very surreal.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very, very much. I've had roughly around about 8 years of experience working with Dynamics CRM and on the ERP apps, and that's working on both global and national projects. I am also the lead architect for the ANS groups, or I should have actually said I work for the ANS, lead architect for the ANS group's Microsoft Fast Track Portfolio Partner Program, which we got accepted into at the end of last year, a Microsoft Women in Power Platform Mentor, and Power Up Program Champ. Now, the quote that you see there is from the ANS's Squirrel Club. As there is no such thing as normal, the Squirrel Club we are extremely proud of is a group of neurodiverse and neurodifferent individuals within ANS. We heavily promote it in the community, and wherever we go, you will quite often see us wearing our Squirrel Club hoodies. And we do know that other organisations, including Microsoft themselves, have set up their own equivalents, which we're very proud of. So thank you very much for that. So my journey, life solution architect on the client side. So one of the biggest differences that you will find being on the client side is that you have a completely different mindset. because you are a direct member of staff. You are basically know everybody. Everybody knows you. Where I was previously in my previous organisation, I was there for 18 years. So I really did know everybody and everybody did know me. So yes, that does give you more empathy with the end user, because the end user, you are one of them, and you know, they are your teammates and they are your friends. But the impact that this has is that it really does change how you run workshops as a solution architect. You're very much more likely to be going in there in a much more relaxed, conversational manner. They tend to run a little bit slower. And also the other thing you've got to remember is that when you're on the client side, you are actually more likely to be delivering larger, multi-year, slower, waterfall approach type projects, which will actually have a Microsoft partner on them. So you're a solution architect on the side of the client, and you have a delivery partner working with you. So what does this mean? This means that there's less direct pressure on you personally to deliver, but you are very much trying to get the very maximum you can out of your partner client. And so therefore, it's almost the reverse to where you'll find yourself if you move over onto professional services. Another thing which is really important on the client side is that it's all about the team success. There's absolutely, or should absolutely be, no ivory tower architects, no I in successful teams. It's all about what the team delivers. So transitioning over to professional services, for me, that journey started in August 2023 when I interviewed for a position that had become vacant at ANS for a Dynamics 365 solution architect, which I was successful in getting, and I joined them in October 2023. So what does this mean? For me, it meant that I needed to go from being a nerdy specialist, which is how I felt of myself over on the client side, to becoming an expert leader. And this really is key and quite fundamental, because the only place for being humble is when you're accepting your MVP award, humble and honoured, because you've got to actually go out there and you've got to be that expert that your client wants and expects you to be. And your presentation skills and your ability to control and lead a meeting are absolutely key, because it is a completely different way of actually leading, especially modelling sessions on the client side as it is on, on the professional services side as it is on the client side. Quite often on the client side, it will be the PM who is leading out the actual session. And then there is engagement between the two solution architects on the client side and on the customer's side, on the professional services side. Whereas obviously on professional services, you are the one who are actually leading that meeting. You need to control it. You need to make sure that it's moving to the agenda that you prepared beforehand, and that you effectively keep that on track at all times. You do need to also be able to quickly learn new skills and new or different viewpoints when you move over from the client side into professional services. So that different viewpoint is that point that I was saying, that on the client side, I was trying to get as much as I could out of my partner. Now, on the partner side, I need to make sure that my clients stick to the schedule of works that has actually been agreed. And they obviously will want to try and actually get as much out of us as they can. So whereas when I was on the client side, it was, I wanted to have a nice relationship with my partner, because that nice relationship with my partner made me feel like I was more likely to get something nice out of them and get those wiggle that everybody likes. Now that I'm on the client side, I cannot, unfortunately, always please my client. I cannot actually want to give them everything that I would have wanted. I was on their side, because I have a very strict schedule of works that I must actually, stick to at all points in time. Now, obviously, if they do want to move away from that, then yes, they can, but there is going to be a cost involved. And you must make sure that they understand that, yes, we can move away, but, we will need a change note agreed ahead before time. Let's park that and look at that later, put it on the back burner, come back to that, move forward with the agenda. And that is so absolutely crucially important. And this is why it comes back to that point about your presentation skills and your ability to control and lead the meeting are key. You cannot allow yourself to get distracted and go down those rabbit holes, which when you're on the client side, it doesn't matter because you're moving at a much slower pace. Utilization is absolutely everything. It is absolutely key. You are a resource to be moved around projects as needed. And you need to learn resilience about that and grow a thick skin. You can't take that personally. If you need to be moved for whatever reason, you've got to accept that. And you're going to need that resilience and that thick skin every single day. So, how did I learn these lessons? Well, first of all, one of the key ones was that your elevator pitch is everything. There is no room for that imposter syndrome. So, as I said, on the client side, everything was about the team. You were humble. If you take that into professional services, immediately that client is going to think that you can't deliver for them. You have got to nail your elevator pitch every single time you walk into that virtual room or that physical room if you're on site. If the client doesn't want you on a project because you haven't been able to convince them that you are the right person for them, they might think you're a nice person, but that you're not going to be able to deliver for them, take it personally. Feedback I got in this particular circumstance was, don't take it personally. That was absolutely initially the wrong feedback to provide me, because it is personally, because it means you haven't actually sold yourself. You haven't actually given the, persuaded that client in those first 20, 30 seconds of a meeting that you are the right person for them. So take it personally. Which means that you need to learn to become comfortable regularly watching and listening to yourself. I absolutely hate doing this. Really, really hate doing this. Always have done. But you need to effectively learn when you're doing those ums and those ers and those and all those body languages that you also do when you are stuck for a word, and you need to learn to train yourself out of those, because they will come across poorly to the client. Regularly watch yourself, listen to yourself. Remember that your body language is also just as important. I have a very bad habit of, when I am actually pausing, I tend to look up in the sky and effectively wince or close my eyes. I've watched myself do it time and time again, and it is something that I am constantly trying to actually train myself out of. And this is probably going to be a lifelong thing for me, because there's always going to be something else that you notice. So how else can you actually improve your performance? Ask for feedback from your peers, from your project managers at every opportunity. Come off of a call, speak to your PM and say, how was that call? How did I do? Where could I have actually improved? What went wrong? If you knew that you were going down a rabbit hole, stop yourself, call out to your PM if you've got the PM on the call with you, and actually utilize them, because that's what they're there for, to stop you going down that rabbit hole, and make sure that you leverage them to help you actually improve as you're learning. It will get easier as you go on, but in those early days, you need to make use of the resources and the support you have around you. And another way you do that is to actually proactively ask for advice if you're not sure how to approach something. And this was something that I still have a lot of problems with, because it's not that I think that I have to be the expert in everything and that I, as a expert solution architect and MVP, that I should know everything. It's that I know that everybody around me is as busy as I am, and I feel guilty for wanting to take their time up with my problems and with my feeling of I'm not there yet and I really should be there yet, and take, you know, time that is time that they need on their projects. Well, no, you need to get over that, and you need to get over that quickly, because it is much better if you actually proactively ask for advice, so that you're actually dealing with something you're not sure about, rather than actually then have to deal with the reactive negative feedback that you'll get if you don't get it right, because that is going to be worse to deal with internally, and you have to grow that thick skin for, than if you'd actually thought, I'm not actually sure how I want to deliver this, how I should deliver this, how would one of my more experienced clients deal with this, who's actually already been through this, rather than just thinking, I should know this, I'll work it out. So just reach out to your peers, ask for 30 minutes of their time to run through something with them. If you find that's still not comfortable with that, reach out to your line manager. And if your line manager hasn't actually got that time, they will know far better than you will who does have capacity, because you might think that everybody's busy, but there might be people who do have capacity to help you out, and they will be able to point you in the right direction of the people who do actually have that capacity to be able to help you out. And you also need to be able to do your job when you actually are at work. If you're compromised, you need to say so. I've got a lot of health issues, as a number of people know, and I'm not always at my best first thing in the morning. So therefore, I make sure that wherever possible, I don't have client meetings starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, if that means that I am not going to be at my best. And that's something that you can work with your PMs and with your line manager to make it so that when you get on those client calls, you are on top form. So what can the partners actually do in order to help? Provide targeted support for those transitioning from the client side, because it is hugely different. I mean, I'm only just through my first year. I've got at least another 1 or 2 years, I would say, going through this transitioning process before I'm actually going to even feel like I'm a solution architect on the professional services side. Include professional services and partner specific delivery standards in your onboarding training. And this was something that I didn't actually receive. There was an assumption that because I was a solution architect at that level of expertise, I shouldn't actually need to be told what the standards were. I should know those standards. But the standards are going to actually be very different from different partners. What one partner's standards are and what their specific delivery expectations are going to be very different from another one. So you can actually, one way you can actually help with this as a partner is you can actually peer review new starters' initial delivery sessions, whatever their level of seniority. So just don't do it if you're bringing in a junior person, which is what you would expect. Make it so that it does not matter which level of seniority it is. Have a peer of that level sitting in on those initial delivery sessions, on those initial modelling sessions, so that they can actually provide that feedback at the very beginning. Partners also need to learn how to support neurodiverse and differently abled staff so that they can excel and deliver, for example, in the way that I've just explained with my health. We also have people, for example, who need to use screen readers. So make sure that the decks that you actually put together as your standard template decks as a partner organisation are already enabled to make sure that they can actually perfectly deliver for a screen reader. Normalise continuous feedback from PMs and peers, not just during annual reviews. And that is absolutely, if you make it so that it's absolutely normal that everybody is getting continuous feedback throughout the week throughout the month, not just on your one-to-ones, not just during your annual reviews. That means that people coming in, it won't feel like they're being specially, selected or held to a different way of working just because they're new and because they're transitioning. And then teach all line managers how to provide context-sensitive, constructive feedback. And I cannot emphasize how important this is, because one of the things that I've learned from my own line manager is that they will actually ask me before they know that they need to give me difficult feedback that they think I might receive difficultly, or might might impact me in a well, not a negative way, but that I might take to heart, say. And they'll actually ask me, what my day was like, or evening before, or if it was a weekend, what I did at the weekend, so that they can actually gauge, whether or not I had a good weekend or a bad weekend. And that will actually change the way that they deliver that feedback. And that's something that they've actually taught me, is that context-sensitive, constructive feedback will always be received better than if you just basically, as a line manager, say, right, I need to provide this feedback, right, that's done, it's off my list of to-dos, move on. That will not go down well. It will not be received well. So, is professional services right for you? Yes, if you like and need variety in your work, because you will be maybe on 2, 3, 4 projects at the same time, and those projects can vary in their length and also be very different in the type of, on the dynamic side, apps that you're actually delivering. And you might find that you're working on your own on some of them, or you can be in a large project team on others. If you can handle being expected to be constantly strong and smashing it, because as far as the client is concerned, that's how you need to be. It does not matter how you feel like it inside, or how you feel once you actually close your laptop down at the end of the day. You've got to be constantly strong and smashing it. Now, you also need to accept that you're going to make a lot of missteps in your first year. Learn from them. You'll make less missteps in your second year, but you will still make missteps, and you'll sit there and you'll think, oh my God, I'm still not getting this right. But the most important thing is you're not making the same mistakes again. As long as if you do make missteps, learn from them, don't make the same mistake again. If you feel that, yep, okay, I am still not getting it right, but it's a different kind of not getting it right, you're moving forward. And that's the most important thing. Keep on moving forward. No, if you prefer consistency and stability, if you don't have that growth mindset and that deep reserves of resilience, and if your life work community balance can't flex when needed, because there's going to be some times when you need to put more into one, and then less and less into the other, and then you'll need to balance it back. And that is also extremely important, because we all go through phases, especially on the professional services side, where you do really need to work hard. But you can't do that constantly. You can't do that forever, because you will burn out. And so you need to make sure that if you feel like you're, in going down that route, speak to your line manager, and then make sure that you can evidence why you feel like that, and work with them to see where effectively and what they can do to support you to bring that balance back together. And that is me. So thank you. If anybody isn't already connected with me, that's my LinkedIn and also my website where I blog at heuristicdev.co.uk. If you've got any questions, if you are on the client side and you want to transition over to professional services, or you're a partner and you've got somebody coming into you from the client side and you'd like to talk about this more, please reach out to me. Really, please reach out to me. One of the things that I started on my journey was blogging, because I didn't want other people to make the same mistakes I was making on my learning journey. This is just a different learning journey, and I'm in exactly the same position. I don't want other people to make the same mistakes or missteps that I've been making. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you. That was so great. So I just felt very grounded in reality, right? I feel like you really hit on what it's like to work in those different spaces. It just felt very practical. So very grateful for that. Thank you for sharing it. And I'm excited for us to get this content online as well, because we have really great followings of the content when we repost it on social media. So thank you so much for sharing about your journey. I think it's really helpful content when people make career choices. I put a question in the chat talking about neurodiversity. If there are any resources that you, I don't know, I was going to say love, maybe like online that you would point folks to. I don't know if it's your content. Is it on your own website there, Sharon, or other content? I think that's also really helpful as well.
Yeah, no, it's not on my website yet. Certainly it needs to get onto my website. But the Squirrel Cub has a lot of resources. So yeah, I'll pick that up in the from the chat, or what I can do, Lydia, is I can actually give you a list of the resources that we use at ANS's Squirrel Club. And then
that'd be awesome.
Share that out. I think that's probably the better idea.
That'd be great. There's a question in the chat from Ariane as well. But it might be best if you chat on directly on LinkedIn, because I think sometimes the Teams chat disappears once the call ends.
Yeah, sure.
And thanks, Angeliki, for the recommendation as well. That's really awesome. We are over time. Thank you so much to both of our speakers today, Sharon and Angeliki. A great start to our community call series in 2025. Thanks for everyone who stuck around a few minutes over the finish time. As I said, the content will be shared ASAP on LinkedIn and YouTube, and just really grateful you joining as we all step back into work in 2025. Have a great afternoon, evening, morning, and we will see you on the next one.